What if I told you that two people could start with the exact same money, the same job, the same city, and end up in completely different financial realities 20 years later? Not because one of them was smarter, not because one got lucky, but because of one single decision they made at age 30. Today, we're following two guys, Alex and John, as they take $50,000 and do completely different things with it. We're running every number, the pretty ones and the ugly ones, because the truth about real estate versus stocks is buried somewhere between the YouTube thumbnail and the footnotes nobody reads. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly where your money belongs. Same starting line, different finish lines. Alex and John are both 30, both earning $58,000 a year, both sitting on $50,000 in savings. Same neighborhood, same coffee shop, same Friday paycheck. Alex decides to buy a $260,000 rental property, a three-bedroom home in a solid part of town. He puts down $52,000, finances the rest on a 30-year mortgage at 7.2% interest. Monthly payment, about $1,410. He finds a tenant willing to pay $1,900 per month. On paper, that's $490 of cash flow every single month. Alex is thrilled. He drives past the house on the way to the gym and feels like a genius. John takes the same $50,000, opens a brokerage account, and drops everything into a total market index fund. He sets up a $350 automatic monthly contribution, and, this is key, he forgets about it. No tenants, no keys, no story at dinner parties. Just a number that quietly grows in the background. Here's what nobody talks about. The psychological gap between these two investments is massive. Alex's investment is physical. He can touch it, photograph it, point to it on Google Maps. John's investment is a number on a screen. That emotional difference, it will quietly shape every financial decision both of them make for the next 2 decades. Years 1 through 3, the honeymoon period. Alex is loving life. Rent hits his account every month like clockwork. He's writing off mortgage interest and depreciation on his taxes. His equity is growing with every payment. This is the version of real estate investing that gets posted on social media. Meanwhile, John's $50,000 grows to roughly $56,000 in year 1, $63,000 by year 2. Nothing dramatic, nothing to screenshot, just slow, quiet compounding. Now, let's run the real numbers for Alex over those first 3 years, because this is where the fantasy collides with the spreadsheet.
He's collected $68,400 in rent. His mortgage payments total $50,760. That leaves about $17,640 in gross cash flow. Sounds great, right? Here's what actually came out of that number. Property taxes, $3,200 per year, $9,600 over 3 years. Insurance, $1,600 per year, $4,800 over 3 years. Water heater replacement in year 2, $1,350. Roof repair in year 3, $3,100. 1 month of vacancy plus relisting fees, $2,500. His own time managing everything, $0 on the books, priceless in reality. After every real cost, Alex's actual net cash flow over 3 years sits somewhere between $2,500 and $5,000, not $17,640. Not even close. John, he's contributed $50,000 plus $12,600 in monthly contributions. At a 10% annual average return, his portfolio sits at roughly $80,000. 0 phone calls, 0 emergencies, 0 weekends at Home Depot. But here's the part that makes this comparison genuinely complicated. Alex has leverage. He used $52,000 to control a $260,000 asset. After 3 years of appreciation, let's call it 3.5% annually, that property is now worth approximately $288,000. His equity has climbed to around $62,000 to $70,000. That's real wealth, and a significant chunk of it was built with the bank's money. That 5-to-1 leverage is the single biggest weapon real estate has in this fight, and it's the reason this debate never has a clean winner. The hidden costs everyone buries. Let's talk about the expenses that never make it into anybody's highlight reel. Vacancy costs landlords on average 1 month of rent per year. That's a full mortgage payment with zero income to offset it. Every tenant turnover brings cleaning costs, repairs, advertising, and your time, none of which are free. Maintenance runs 1 to 2% of the property's value annually. On a $260,000 home, that's $2,600 to $5,200 every single year. Some years it's a $150 drain fix, other years it's a $9,000 HVAC system that dies in July and you cannot wait on it. Capital expenditures are the silent killers. Roofs, furnaces, water heaters. These aren't surprises, they're guaranteed future expenses. If you're not setting money aside monthly for them, you're not running an investment, you're running on borrowed time. Property management, if Alex hires someone, costs 8 to 10% of monthly rent, roughly $150 to $190 per month, gone before he sees a cent. Problem tenants are the nightmare nobody budgets for. One tenant who knows how to game the eviction process can cost you 4 to 6 months of rent plus legal fees. That single event can erase an entire year of profits, and it happens to experienced landlords, not just beginners. By year 5, Alex is on his third tenant. He's replaced the roof for $9,200, handled a plumbing emergency for $1,600, and his actual cash-on-cash return after real expenses is hovering around 3 to 5%, not the 15% he used to describe at backyard barbecues. John, still doing absolutely nothing, has grown his portfolio to roughly $145,000 to $160,000 by year 7. The compounding is accelerating now. The returns on his returns are generating more new wealth annually than his original contributions ever did. Year 10, the surprising middle. By year 10, Alex's property is roughly $360,000 to $380,000. His remaining mortgage balance sits around $170,000, leaving him with $190,000 to $210,000 in equity. He's also spent between $25,000 and $45,000 out of pocket beyond his original down payment. John, with consistent $350 monthly contributions, his portfolio is at roughly $175,000 to $195,000. He's contributed $92,000 total. Everything else is compound growth. At year 10, they're shockingly close in total wealth, but look at the cost of how they got there. Alex spent hundreds of hours managing his property, took on $208,000 in debt, and concentrated everything into one asset in one zip code. John is diversified across thousands of companies and has never missed a night of sleep over his portfolio. Year 20, the real picture. Alex's property is now worth $460,000 to $520,000. The mortgage is paid off or nearly there. His equity sits around $430,000 to $520,000. But after 20 years of maintenance, repairs, tenant drama, insurance, and taxes, his actual net cash flow profit above all expenses comes to somewhere between $60,000 and $100,000. John's portfolio, at a 10% average annual return with $350 monthly contributions, has grown to $440,000 to $490,000. His total contribution? About $134,000. The remaining $300,000 plus is pure compounding. Same ballpark, completely different journey. Now here's where it gets interesting. If John had simply increased his contribution by $200 more per month from $350 to $550, his 20-year portfolio jumps to $590,000 to $640,000. In real estate, that same move means buying a second property, taking on another mortgage, and doubling every headache you already have. Let's be honest about stocks, too. Index funds have real weaknesses, and pretending otherwise would make me exactly the kind of creator I promised not to be. In 2008, the total market dropped 38%. In spring 2020, it fell 34% in under a month. If John had $160,000 and watched it become $98,000 in 4 weeks, that's genuinely traumatic. And data consistently shows that most retail investors panic sell at the bottom and buy back in at the top, destroying the very returns this strategy promises. There's no monthly cash flow, no leverage, and no depreciation tax benefits, something real estate investors use to legally reduce taxable income even while the property appreciates in value. So which one actually wins? Here's the honest answer. It depends on you, not the investment. Real estate wins if you have local market knowledge, time to manage it, emotional tolerance for illiquidity, and access to a market where rent covers real costs with room to spare. Index funds win if you want simplicity, diversification, liquidity, and zero management, with comparable or better long-term returns and a fraction of the stress. And if you can do both, the math on MAT combination changes the conversation entirely. That's the next video. But before you go, drop a comment below. Are you team real estate, team index funds, or are you doing both? I read every single one. Like this video if it gave you the real picture, not the thumbnail version. Subscribe for weekly breakdowns with actual math and zero agenda. See you next week.